Okay, guys, we're gonna do week 5 of fly tying, which is the Biot bodied Hendrickson with a CDC wing. We did one of these a few years ago, or at least this style of wing, so hopefully you guys like it. But first we're going to tie in our tail material, these micro fivets. They don't even really turn up on the screen there we go. And I'm going to make them about a hook shank in length. If anything, you can err on the long side. I like the look of a longer tail more so than a shorter tail. But I'm going to wrap those back to where the bend starts. Then I'm just going to wrap those in all the way up to where I want my body to end. Because we're doing a Biot body, I don't want a big lump at the back. So once I get them far enough forward, I'm going to cut the waist off, and then I'm going to put my thread back to where those tails are tied in. And again, we're going to take our Biot, and if you look at these, there's kind of a clear part. You can see that hook shank through there, and then it disappears. If you put that clear part down, usually you're going to get the hackle that we're looking for. It doesn't always happen, so if it doesn't, just start wrapping your feather in the opposite direction, and it should pop up. And I'm going to grab my hackle pliers here, and I'm going to start wrapping, slightly overlapping each turn. Oh, try not to drop your feather. These are fragile, they will break, especially if you drop them. So I'm gonna start wrapping here, and you can see I'm overlapping about half of this fiber every time, and that's just to keep the feather smooth. And as I come up, I'm going to do about half a turn here. I'm going to capture this with 2 wraps before I let go of this feather. So I'm going to pull down on my thread, take my hackle pliers off, pull this back a little bit, wrap in front just to secure everything. Now I'm going to come in with some scissors, cut that flush, and then I'm going to wrap everything, those cut ends, down to about 1/3 of the way down the hook shank, because their bodies are usually 2/3, their abdomens, or excuse me, their thorax is about a 1/3. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take just a tiny little bit of dubbing. We're just using a gray super fine dubbing here. It's got a little bit of, this might be a blend. But I just want to put just a little bit down to kind of cover a little bit of my thorax here before I do my wing. So once I get that in place, I'll rip some of those out. We don't need all those little errant fibers. So the wing, this is kind of a neat little wing. I use this a lot on smaller dry flies, and it's, for this size, 3 CDC feathers will float just fine. But what we're going to do, you want to line up your stems. You're going to grab the tips, and you're going to find where the longest fibers start, and that's right about here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the long fibers out of the way. I'm going to come in, and I'm going to snip these right at the stem. And the key here is to keep these cut ends even. I'm going to come back to the butts of the feathers. I'm going to preen everything forward. And the idea here is to tie over the stem. We're going to tie over the stems, hold tension and pull back till our thread comes in front of the stem, and then these fibers here are going to be our wing, the height portion, and then these back here are going to be the length of our wing. So again, we are tying over the stems, and then we're going to pull them out. So if you watch here, I get 2 wraps. Now the key here is 2 wraps right on top of each other. Otherwise you'll get a gap. So I'm going to gently start pulling these back, and then right about there, my stems are no longer tied in. It's just the fibers. So once you're off the stem, pick everything up and fold it back, so then you can tie at kind of an angle a thread dam here to help prop everything up. Now it's not perfect yet. I'm going to use just a tad bit more dubbing. I mean, like nothing. Very little dubbing here. It's just to help control the wing and put a little bit of dubbing up front. So I'm going to slide this up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go behind and underneath the wing like so. I'm going to come in front, do 2 wraps here. See how that looks? It's still leaning forward, so I'm going to do a 3rd wrap. It's pretty much straight up and down. And then I'm going to come in, build a little thread head, and then I'm going to whip finish, and I'll show you guys how to cut the wing and manipulate the tail. So I'm just going to do a 1, 2, 3, 4 turn finish. I'll hit this with some head cement later, but for now that should be good. So the wing, the easiest way to do this is to be right-handed, which I am not, if you want to do it in the vise. So I'm going to take this out of the vise. I'm going to try to keep it in frame here, but I'm going to pick up all these fibers, the butts, the tips, like so, and you can barely see the body sticking out by my thumb here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut downward at an angle straight towards that end of that body. And if you do so, I'm now going to cut up, I'm just kind of shaping this wing so that when it's finished, put it back in the vise so you can see it. When it's finished, you get a nice upright wing. You know, it looks good from the bottom. And once you get comfortable with this, the wing should definitely extend past the body a little bit. If anything, I could cut this smaller. I'm going to leave it longer. It's just going to make it easier for me to see. But I am going to even these up right here. So that is your Biot bodied CDC Hendrickson. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take a micro fibet that's on, if I can get one of them here, on either side of the middle, and I'm just going to bend them. Being plastic, you can separate them and get a more natural, lifelike tail. And I'm also going to bend them up a little bit. But there you go. Pretty easy, pretty simple. Look forward to next week's fly, the duck-quill caddis. Thanks.